Nobody teaches you how to make a proper stew anymore. Not at school, not on telly, and certainly not in those glossy cookbooks stacked 3 deep at Waterstones, the ones that call for harissa paste, sumac, and 17 ingredients you cannot pronounce. But your Nan could walk into a kitchen with a scrag end of lamb, 2 onions, a handful of carrots and a few potatoes, and an hour later the whole street knew what was for tea. No recipe, no scales, no fuss. 4 ingredients. Eyes closed. Number 7 on this list fed entire mining villages through strikes. Number 3 uses a cut most people throw away. And number 1 might be the greatest thing ever cooked in a British kitchen. Hit subscribe because this list is about to make your Tesco shop look very different. Let us count them down. Number 25. Potato and onion stew. When everything else ran out, when the cupboard was bare and payday was still 3 days off, your Nan made this. Potatoes, onions, butter, and a splash of milk stirred in at the end. She sliced the potatoes thin, layered them with rings of onion in her heaviest pot, added water just to cover, and a knob of butter on top. Lid on. Heat low. 45 minutes later, the kitchen filled with a smell so simple and so good that children stopped playing in the yard and drifted inside without being called. The potatoes had broken down into a thick, creamy broth. The onions had melted into sweetness, and that butter gave it a richness that had no right being there for the price. A splash of milk at the end turned the whole thing silky. In the 1950s, 5 pounds of potatoes cost about a shilling. This stew fed a family of 6 for less than the price of a loaf. It was not glamorous. It was not clever. It was survival dressed up as supper, and it tasted like your Nan loved you more than anything in the world. Number 24. Sausage and bean stew. Your Nan could stretch 4 pork sausages into a meal for the whole family, and nobody left the table hungry. She browned the sausages in the pan first, letting the fat render and the skins turn golden. Then she added a tin of baked beans, a diced onion, and a squeeze of tomato puree. That was it. The beans thickened the sauce. The sausage fat gave it body. The tomato puree added a depth that made it taste like something simmered all day, even though the whole thing took 25 minutes. A pound of sausages cost about 2 shillings in the early 1960s, and a tin of beans was 6pence. The entire stew came under 3 shillings and filled 5 plates. Children mopped the sauce with bread. Fathers had seconds. Mothers saved the last spoonful for their own tea, eaten standing at the counter after everyone else had gone. This was Wednesday night cooking. No ceremony, no pretension. Just a woman who knew that a handful of cheap ingredients could hold a family together. Number 23. Leek and potato stew. The Welsh will tell you this is caul without the meat. And they are right. Leeks, potatoes, butter, and a bay leaf. The leeks were sweated in butter until soft. Cubed potatoes went in with water and that single bay leaf. 40 minutes on low heat. The potatoes half collapsed, turning the broth thick and starchy, while the leeks held just enough shape for texture. A bunch of leeks cost a few pence at the greengrocer. The whole pot cost less than a shilling. It was poverty cooking at its most dignified. Number 22. Shin beef and carrot stew. Shin was the cut butchers practically gave away. Too tough for roasting. Too sinewy for frying. But your Nan knew that 3 hours in a low oven would turn that cheap slab of beef into something that fell apart at the touch of a spoon. Shin beef, carrots, onions, and a splash of Worcestershire sauce. She browned the beef in dripping first, building a dark crust on every surface. Then the carrots and onions went in, cut rough because precision was for people with time to waste. A shake of Worcestershire sauce, enough water to cover, and into the oven at gas mark 2. The connective tissue in shin is packed with collagen. 3 hours of low heat dissolved it into gelatin, turning the cooking liquor into something glossy and deeply savory. The carrots sweetened as they softened. The onions disappeared into the sauce entirely. By 1955, shin cost about 1 4 pence a pound, half the price of a proper roasting joint. Your nan fed a family of 7 for the cost of a bus fare. Butchers still sell shin cheap today. Most people walk straight past it. Their loss. Number 21st. Corned beef and potato stew. That tin of corned beef at the back of every British cupboard was the foundation of one of the quickest stews your nan ever made. Its ingredients were a tin of corned beef, potatoes, 1 onion, and an OXO cube dissolved in boiling water. The OXO gave beefy depth. 20 minutes on the hob. The potatoes thickened the broth. The corned beef broke into rough shreds. Families kept 3 or 4 tins in the cupboard at all times. This stew appeared during strikes, snowstorms, and those long weeks between paydays. It was not elegant. It was meant to fill bellies and stop children asking when tea was ready. Number 20. Bacon and cabbage stew. Not the Irish boiled dinner with a whole joint, but the humbler British version made with odds and ends. Bacon scraps, a wedge of cabbage, potatoes, and a knob of butter. Your nan bought bacon pieces from the butcher for next to nothing. These were the offcuts, the trimmings, the bits too ragged to sell as rashers, but still packed with smoky, salty flavor. She fried those scraps until the fat rendered and the edges crisped. Then in went shredded cabbage, cubed potatoes, and just enough water to steam everything tender. The butter went in at the end, stirred through until everything glistened. The bacon fat seasoned the whole pot. The cabbage turned sweet and soft. The potatoes soaked up every drop of that smoky liquor. In homes across the Midlands and the North, this stew appeared on Tuesday and Thursday nights with the reliability of the factory whistle. A pound of bacon pieces cost about 9 pence in 1958. The cabbage came from the allotment. The whole meal came under a shilling and tasted like it had been planned rather than cobbled together from scraps. That was your nan's genius, making necessity look like choice. Number 19. Lamb neck and turnip stew. Neck of lamb was the cheapest cut on the butcher's block, bony and tough, dismissed by anyone who did not know what slow cooking could do. Your nan bought it by the pound, hacked into rough chops with the bone still in, and let the oven do the rest. Lamb neck, turnips, onions, and a pinch of dried thyme from the garden. She browned the chops in a hot pan, the kitchen filling with the smell of searing lamb fat, then packed them into a casserole dish with chunks of turnip and onion. The thyme went in last, just a whisper of it, enough to lift the flavor without overwhelming the lamb. 2.5 hours at a low heat. The bones gave up their marrow. The turnips softened into something almost sweet. The sauce turned glossy and thick with rendered fat and natural gelatin. Neck of lamb cost about 10 pence a pound in the early 1950s. Turnips grew in every allotment. Children fought over the bones, sucking the marrow and wiping their chins with their sleeves while mothers pretended not to notice. This was not refined cooking. This was food that understood hunger and answered it honestly. Number 18. Oxtail and onion stew. Oxtail pieces dusted in flour, browned in dripping until dark and crusted, then simmered with onions and carrots for 3 hours. The meat clung to the bone in rich, sticky shreds. The sauce turned almost black with concentrated flavor. Every bite required negotiation with the bone, but the reward was meat, so tender it dissolved on the tongue. In the 1950s, oxtail cost about 8 pence a pound because nobody wanted it. Your nan wanted it. Today, Oxtail costs more per pound than some steaks. Restaurants serve it for £15 a plate. Your Nan made it for pennies and never once called it a delicacy. She called it Tuesday tea. First pattern break. Here is something the supermarkets never tell you. The reason these stews tasted so good had nothing to do with secret recipes. It was the cuts of meat. Shin, scrag end, neck, oxtail, cheek. The cheapest parts because they were the toughest. But tough means connective tissue. Connective tissue means collagen. And collagen, cooked low and slow, dissolves into gelatin. That gelatin turns thin, watery broth into something thick, glossy, and deeply satisfying. Modern lean cuts cannot do this. A chicken breast simmered for 3 hours produces nothing but dry, stringy disappointment. Your Nan did not know the word collagen. She did not need to. She knew that the ugly cuts made the best stew. Science took 50 years to explain what she understood by instinct. Number 17. Peas pudding stew. In the Northeast, dried split peas, a ham bone, an onion, and a knob of butter became 2 meals from one pot. The peas simmered with the ham bone until everything collapsed into thick, golden mush. The cooking liquor became a separate stew, with diced potatoes added to the smoky broth, while the peas pudding sat in the pantry. The ham bone cost nothing. Butchers gave them away. Dried split peas cost a few pence. In Durham and Northumberland, this was not a recipe. It was a way of life. Number 16. Chicken giblet stew. When your Nan bought a whole chicken, it came with giblets tucked inside. The neck, heart, liver, and gizzard. Most people today throw them away. Your Nan simmered those with onion, carrots, and a bay leaf. The broth that formed was dark, rich, and intensely savory. Served over toast or with mashed potatoes, it was a meal conjured from what other people discarded. When a whole chicken cost 5 shillings, nothing from that bird went unused. Number 15. Ox cheek and carrot stew. Ox cheek, carrots, onions, and a splash of stout. The cheek seared until nearly black, then slow cooked in stout for 3 hours. The ale reduced into a sauce so dark and rich it stained the bowl. The ox cheek fell apart into thick, unctuous shreds. In brewery towns across the Midlands, a pair of beef cheeks cost a few pence. The ale cost 6pence. Today, ox cheek appears on gastropub menus at £14 a portion. Your Nan would laugh. Number 14. Rabbit and onion stew. Before myxomatosis devastated the rabbit population in the 1950s, wild rabbit was the cheapest protein in Britain. Farmers gave them away. Poachers sold them for pennies. 1 rabbit, jointed. 3 onions, sliced. A tablespoon of flour and a bay leaf. Your Nan browned the rabbit pieces in dripping, dusted them with flour, and piled the onions on top. Water, bay leaf, lid on. 2 hours in the oven. The rabbit turned pale and tender, falling from the bone in long, delicate shreds. The onions dissolved into a sweet, silky sauce, thickened by the flour and the natural gelatin from the bones. Served with boiled potatoes and bread for mopping, this stew appeared on rural tables from Cornwall to the Scottish borders. A single rabbit fed a family of 5 for essentially nothing. When rabbit became scarce after myxomatosis, chicken replaced it. But ask anyone over 70, and they will tell you chicken never tasted as good. Number 13. Ham hock and lentil stew. A smoked ham hock cost almost nothing at the butcher. It was bone, skin, fat, and just enough meat to make it worthwhile. But simmered for 3 hours, it produced a stew that tasted like it had been cooking for days. Ham hock, red lentils, carrots, and an onion. Your Nan submerged the hock in water, brought it to a gentle simmer, and let it bubble away until the meat slid off the bone. Then she stripped the meat, returned it to the pot with lentils, diced carrots and onion. Another 30 minutes and the lentils collapsed into a thick, smoky porridge that clung to the spoon. The ham fat melted into the broth, seasoning everything without the need for salt. In Scotland and the north of England, this stew appeared on tables throughout winter. The hock cost about a shilling. The lentils cost pennies. The entire pot, enough for 2 days of meals, came in under 2 shillings. The smell of that ham simmering, smoky and sweet, drifting through the house on a Saturday morning, is a memory that stays with you long after the recipe is forgotten. Second pattern break. Here is a truth about stew that nobody in a modern kitchen seems to understand. The best stew is always the one you make with yesterday's leftovers. Your Nan did not plan Monday's stew. She opened the larder, saw what was there, and made it work. A few potatoes going soft, half an onion, a bit of bacon that would not last another day. Into the pot. Water. Heat. Time. You cannot ruin a stew. You can overcook a steak. You can burn a cake. But stew gets better the longer you ignore it. Your Nan did not stand over the pot and stir. She put the lid on, went to hang the washing, and came back when the kitchen smelled right. That instinct, knowing when a stew is done by the smell of the house, is a skill no cooking show will ever teach you. Number 12. Brisket and swede stew. Brisket, swede, onions, and a teaspoon of English mustard stirred into the sauce. 3 hours at gas, Mark II. The swede softened into something almost honeyed. The mustard cut through the richness without making the stew hot. The brisket turned fork tender. In the East Midlands, brisket cost about 1 and 6 a pound. The whole stew cost less than half a crown, and the leftovers made the next day's lunch. Spooned cold between 2 slices of bread. Number 11. Mutton and barley stew. Before lamb replaced mutton in the 1960s, mutton was the backbone of British stew making. It was older, tougher, and cheaper, with a deeper flavor that rewarded long cooking. Mutton, pearl barley, onions, and carrots. 2 hours of simmering and the barley swelled, thickening the broth into something between a stew and a soup. This was the stew that appeared in miners' flasks, poured into tin cups at the pit head, steam rising in the freezing air. When mutton disappeared from the high street, this stew went with it. Chefs are bringing mutton back now at premium prices. Your Nan paid a shilling. Number 10. Liver and onion stew. Not the fried version. The stewed version, slow cooked until the liver turned silky and the onions became a dark, sweet gravy. Lamb's liver, onions, potatoes, and a splash of gravy browning. 2 hours in the oven at low heat. The liver released its iron-rich juices. The onions caramelized slowly. The potatoes on top crisped, while the ones below soaked up every drop. Children who hated fried liver ate this version without complaint, because the long cooking mellowed the metallic bite. It vanished when offal fell from fashion, but the families who kept making it knew they had something the rest of Britain had thrown away. Third pattern break. Now here is what the supermarkets did to British stew. They killed it with convenience. In 1975, a tin of Frey Bentos stew cost 40 pence. Making a proper stew from scratch cost 30 pence, but took 2 hours. The supermarkets bet that families would pay that extra 10 pence to save 2 hours. They were right. By 1985, tinned and frozen stews outsold homemade in most households. The problem was not just the taste. It was the loss of knowledge. A generation of women who could look at a piece of scrag end and know exactly what to do with it was replaced by a generation who could operate a tin opener. The cuts disappeared because nobody bought them. The butchers closed because nobody needed them. That is not progress. That is forgetting. Number 9. Beef and parsnip stew. Stewing beef tossed in flour and browned hard, then simmered with parsnips, onions, and enough water to cover. 2 hours later, the parsnips had almost dissolved into the sauce, making it sweet, thick, and golden. The sweetness of the parsnip balanced the savory depth of the beef in a way carrots never quite managed. Children who claimed to hate parsnips ate this stew without recognizing them. Mothers smiled and said nothing. Number 8. Kidney and mushroom stew. Lamb kidneys cost almost nothing because most people could not stomach the idea. Kidneys, mushrooms, onions, and a splash of Worcestershire sauce. Browned fast, then simmered for 30 minutes. The kidneys turned tender and mild. The mushrooms gave body. Served on toast, this stew cost a few pence and tasted like something from a country house kitchen. The cuts rich people now pay restaurant prices for were the same cuts your Nan bought because she could not afford anything else. Number 7. Scrag end and potato stew. This is the stew that fed mining villages through the 1926 general strike. Scrag end of lamb, potatoes, onions, and a pinch of salt. No herbs, no wine, no stock cubes. The scrag end was mostly bone, but that bone released marrow, fat, and gelatin into the broth, turning plain water into something rich and nourishing. In pit villages across Yorkshire, Durham, and South Wales, women pooled their scrag ends and made communal pots, feeding whole streets from a single fire. The cost was almost nothing. The value was immeasurable. When people talk about the resilience of working-class Britain, this is what they mean. Not speeches. A pot of scrag end and potatoes shared with neighbors when sharing was all you had. Number 6. Marrowbone and vegetable stew. Your Nan asked the butcher for marrow bones and he handed them over for free. She roasted those bones first, 20 minutes in a hot oven until the marrow turned golden. Then into the pot went potatoes, carrots, and an onion. 2 hours on the hob. The marrow melted into the broth, turning it silky and savory. Children were given the bones to pick clean. Fathers spread warm marrow on toast with a pinch of salt. Today, bone broth costs £4 a carton at Waitrose. Your Nan made it for free and never once called it a superfood. Number 5. Pork belly and apple stew. When pork belly cost 6p a pound because it was too fatty for polite company, your Nan bought it without hesitation. Pork belly, cooking apples, onions, and a pinch of sage from the garden. She cut the belly into thick strips, browned them until the fat crisped, then added sliced apples and onions. The apples collapsed into a sharp, sweet sauce that cut through the richness of the pork. The sage added an earthy note that made the whole stew taste autumnal. 2 hours in the oven. The fat rendered slowly, basting the meat as it cooked. The apples dissolved into the sauce completely. The pork turned soft and yielding, each piece melting on the tongue. In Somerset, Herefordshire, and the West Country, this stew appeared on tables from September through February when the apple trees were heavy and the pigs had been fattened on windfalls. A whole pork belly fed a family for 2 days. The leftovers were even better cold, the jelly set firm around each piece of meat. Number 4. Beef cheek and ale stew. Beef cheeks seared until nearly black, then slow cooked in brown ale with onions and carrots. 3 hours in the oven, the ale reduced into a sauce so dark and bittersweet, it stained the bowl. The cheeks gave up their collagen, turning the sauce glossy and thick. A pair of beef cheeks cost a few pence. The ale cost 6pence. The whole stew, enough for 6, came under 2 shillings. Your Nan served it with bread for mopping, and did not apologize for the cut or the cost. The bowl spoke for itself. Number 3. Pig trotter and potato stew. Most people today would not touch a pig's trotter. Your Nan bought them by the bag. Trotters, potatoes, onions, and a bay leaf. 4 hours of simmering until the bones gave up every drop of gelatin. She stripped the meat, discarded the bones, and returned everything to the pot with cubed potatoes and onions. The broth set solid when cold, wobbling like jelly. Reheated, it turned glossy and unctuous. Trotters cost pennies. Butchers often gave them away. French chefs would recognize that broth as the foundation of their finest sauces. Your Nan did not know she was making fond de cuisine. She was making tea. Number 2. Ham bone and vegetable stew. After Sunday's ham was carved and the cold slices portioned for Monday's sandwiches, the bone went into the pot. That was the rule. No exceptions. A ham bone, potatoes, carrots, and a wedge of cabbage. Your Nan filled her biggest pot with water, dropped in the bone, and let it simmer for 2 hours. The bone released waves of smoky, salty flavor into the broth. Then the vegetables went in. Potatoes cut into chunks. Carrots sliced thick. Cabbage shredded and added in the last 20 minutes so it kept its color. Whatever scraps of meat clung to the bone fell away into the stew, and the marrow enriched the broth beyond all proportion to its cost. The bone itself cost nothing. It was a byproduct. But in your Nan's kitchen, there were no byproducts. Everything had a purpose. Everything earned its place. This stew appeared on Monday or Tuesday tables across Britain, a second meal extracted from Sunday's roast by a woman who understood that waste was not just careless. It was ungrateful. The pot was scraped clean. The bone was boiled once more for stock. Nothing, absolutely nothing, was thrown away. Number 1. Scrag end and dumpling stew. The greatest cheap stew in British history. Scrag end of mutton, flour, suet, and an onion. The mutton simmered with the onion for 3 hours, turning the cheap, bony cut into something rich and falling apart. The kitchen filled with a smell that pulled everyone to the table without a word being spoken. Then your Nan made dumplings. Just flour and suet mixed with cold water and rolled into balls the size of golf balls between her palms. She dropped them into the bubbling stew 20 minutes before serving and put the lid back on. They swelled as they cooked, absorbing the meaty broth, growing light and fluffy on top, while the bottoms turned dense and savory where they sat in the liquid. The stew was dark and glossy. The dumplings were pale and pillowy. The contrast was perfection. Scrag end cost about 8p a pound in the 1950s. Flour and suet cost pennies. The onion came from the string hanging in the pantry. The entire stew, enough to feed a family of 6 with seconds for the hungriest, cost less than 2 shillings. This stew fed Britain through 2 wars, a depression, and decades of austerity. It asked for nothing but patience, and gave back everything: warmth, comfort, fullness. The knowledge that someone cared enough to stand in a kitchen and make something from almost nothing. That was your Nan's gift. Not recipes, not technique. Just the quiet understanding that 4 ingredients and a heavy pot could hold a family together when everything else was falling apart. Try one this week. Use the cheapest cut you can find. An onion, whatever is going soft in the drawer, a heavy pot, low heat, and time. Then come back and tell me your Nan was wrong. Drop a comment telling me which stew your family made. These were never just stews. They were love, measured in pennies and served in chipped bowls. Your Nan knew. Now you know too.